because you look at what the Trump administration is doing, you look at what Mitch McConnell is doing, you look at what a lot of these Republicans are doing, and they are never branded as radical. But isn't kidnapping children and trafficking them across the country and deporting their parents, isn't that radically violent and wrong? Isn't refusing economic protections for 30 million people radical? Isn't that a radical and severe thing to do? Isn't, when you look at, so many of these policies, but because they are wealthy, isn't a $2 trillion tax cut giveaway to the wealthiest people in society, to billionaires and the richest and wealthiest people, isn't that a radical misallocation of resources? It is. But the politicians who are very often wealthy, very often white, and very often male, though often they don't have to check all three of those boxes, but often do, they do radical things all the time, but they are not branded as radicals. Yet, women of color, and people who fight for the working class are always deemed radical. And I find this really interesting because it's really about otherizing people. When you call someone a radical, it's often done in a mainstream, when the mainstream calls people radical, it's often done with the purpose of otherizing. And that's when we start talking about dehumanizing language, right? Because even when I saw in some of the coverage to my speech, like people called me fiery and they called me emotional. And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't feel very fiery delivering that speech. I didn't feel like I was worked up or anything like that. And I do get fiery. Y'all know. But not here, not there. Yet people automatically jumped to this script of fiery, of basically she is asking for it, right? Like she came out here swinging all of these things when it simply wasn't even true. It wasn't even true. And so, when we talk about radical in a political context, in a mainstream political context, I'm not talking about the meaning of the word, because if you actually look at the meaning of the word, I don't mind being called a radical. I don't mind being radical when our problems are so radical. But in the way that word is used and weaponized and selectively applied, it's done in a dehumanizing context. It's done in a way that's saying, these radicals, if you're radical, then you want to destroy or hurt people, and so we can do whatever we want to you. That's the subtext. That's the subtext in the way that it's used. Because, it's so selectively applied, and it's not evenly applied. And this happens all the time. It also happens in a very misogynistic way. When you consume the news, you will almost always see, especially with women, that a lot of news outlets deliberately select the most unattractive, unflattering. They'll take pictures of us kind of mid-sentence or mid-speaking, and they'll make that like the ugliest photo that you can find of a woman possible when she's trying to make a point. They'll make that the header of a news article. And really it has implications for the point, right? But when it comes to men, I think it's hilarious the lengths that news media goes to find like the most gorgeous photo. Oh, gorgeous, I don't know if I'd say gorgeous, but they'll find the most flattering photo ever of a man that's very often either being accused of sexual harassment or assault, or is proposing something very ugly. Like, you see the photos that the press use of someone like Newt Gingrich, and they're always photos from like 1999. Like their photo, or like Lindsey Graham. They're like pictures from years ago. Or they are pictures to make them look serious. And these are all kind of to make them look esteemed. And these are all the subtext. This all works in a subconscious level. And I noticed that, a lot of the times it functions in a very subconscious way, but it very often bubbles to the top. When I was running in my primary election, where Wall Street and Goldman Sachs and all these big bank CEOs dumped $3 million against me. Oh, and then we wiped the floor with them because it's people, not big money, that should be dictating our democracy. Anyways, that's an aside. What did Goldman Sachs do? What did these Wall Street folks do? What did these dark money, big money funded organizations do? They sent out all of these mailers in this community, in my community, of me making these like terrible faces, right? Like they take pictures of me mid-speaking. They up the contrast. This also happens to candidates of color all the time, where they will manipulate your skin tone in Photoshop, which is so ugly and messed up, because you're playing into and you're stoking the fires of colorism. You're stoking the fires of racism. You're stoking the fires of misogyny, of xenophobia, because you know it's going to play into your hands. And but you know what? It happens all the time, and it's something that I think we can start to solve by being conscious of, and you have to call it out. And so whenever you see that, here's my little takeaway for today. Whenever you all see a news organization tweet a story about a female politician, and they use like an ugly photo, a lot of times they even contrast it. This even happened last week in my confrontation with Ted Yoho, where they'll use it, where a lot of organizations use articles where I'm scowling and he's smiling, when he was the assailant, when he was the one who was accosting somebody. So whenever you see that, call it out, and you should ask, why did you use those photos? Why did you use those photos in two different ways? And the more people start calling it out, the more these subconscious things start bubbling to the surface. And that's how people can be held accountable. Because when we talk about these structures, as we know, it's all about these little, it's all of these little decisions that amount to then add up to real policy implications. Because what happens is that you discredit the messenger so that you can discredit the message, right? If you call the person, if someone's standing up and saying, listen, we need rent and mortgage relief right now, if you take the person that's standing up and you make an example of them and you call them radical and you make them look angry, then people say, oh, I don't know if I agree with her, or I don't know if I agree with that. And then what happens? You try to discredit the messenger so that you can discredit the message of guaranteeing healthcare, of raising the minimum wage to a living wage, so you can discredit rent and mortgage relief for everyday people. And then before you know it, you end up, we end up with just politics and politicians that aren't fighting for us. And so I just wanted to send that out there. I'll do one more question for you all. Feel free to pop the question here into the chat. And holy smokes, $57,000 for NYSYLC. You all are amazing. Again, there's never any pressure or anything to donate, but the fact that you all have, this is incredible. We are on the precipice right now. The unemployment pandemic, the pandemic unemployment assistance is expiring this week. We have to put the pressure on Republicans to expand it. And please do not take what they're trying to do right now is that they're trying to reduce it. So they know that there's going to be huge political consequences if they don't renew it at all. But now what they're trying to do is say, what if we send, we're in the haggling phase, right? And so what they're trying to do is eliminate the expansion, and they're trying to give people less. We need to put pressure on Republicans right now to tell them to expand the $600 and to extend the $600 pandemic unemployment assistance, because they are trying to chop it. They're trying to get away with whatever they can get away with. If they can get away with getting rid of it entirely, they're going to do it. If they can get away with cutting it in half to make it $300, they're going to do it. So please don't let them do it. Light up the phones, light them up on Twitter, light them up everywhere, because we have to make sure that they extend unemployment insurance, unemployment assistance for everybody, especially, because some of y'all are in states that have horrible unemployment insurance policies. I know we have really big issues in New York, but relatively, New York's unemployment assistance is actually way higher than a lot of other states in the country. We're probably in like the top 3 or 4, which is sad that we're in the top 3 or 4, because we should be doing so much more. But there are states in Florida, there are other states that give like $200-$300 a week that people can't live on. And so this $600 it makes, it's the difference between people being able to feed themselves and not feed themselves. So do I think we're going to get another stimulus check? I think that right now, and again, all of this negotiation is up in the air right now. So they're arguing about this in the Capitol as we speak, and as we negotiate. So all of this with a big disclaimer that none of this is guaranteed. I'm just reading the tea leaves for you all. Here's what I think. I think that right now, today, just in how the discourse is, I think things are looking good for a second stimulus check. But it's not by any means guaranteed. I think it's looking okay. But there are all of these other chips that they're trying to use, right? So they're trying to pit all of these benefits that we've already given people and that we've already agreed to. We've already agreed to extend to the $600 unemployment, right? We've already sent out one stimulus check, right? Now what they're trying to do is pit these two things up against each other. What Republicans are trying to do is pit these things against each other. And so what it seems like the negotiation is right now is that Republicans are saying, okay, we will send you another stimulus check, but we're going to cut the unemployment assistance. That's not very helpful, right? And also, $600, when you get that check multiple times, adds up to more than $1,200, which is why they're trying to dangle this stimulus check, because they want to make sure that we cut that big number too. So that's kind of the thing. That's where things are at right now. I believe that we should be doing both. I think we need to send out a second stimulus check, and we need to make sure that that unemployment continues for every person that needs it. And, as small businesses slowly start to open up, if we're able, God willing, if we're able to get on track with being safe and mask wearing and all of this stuff, then we can start implementing, I'm supportive of a transition back to work that allows the federal government to pick up the tab if you're making more money on unemployment. I think we should raise the minimum wage, and I think that the federal government should step in to help small businesses maintain that level of income. So if in the short run, if you're a small business owner and making that leap in wages is going to be really tough for you in reopening, I do think that we can work it out. Pramila Jayapal has the Paycheck Guarantee Act, which works to do that. So it's not just about this binary of unemployment and employment, but that people are able to make what they need to live, and they don't have to choose between those two things. And so there's solutions out there. The question is, do people want to try? And right now we don't have enough people that are willing to try. So that's the big thing. So right now, I do think that there's going to be assistance of some kind that is going to be kind of re-upped by the federal government. But I am asking you, if you have a state that is represented by a Republican, or if you are represented by a Republican in any way, shape, or form, now is the time to put on pressure. Don't put on pressure 3 weeks from now when they pass some terrible bill and it's too late because it's already done. You need to be lighting up the phones right now while they're having this negotiation, because they need to feel the heat. And November's coming, and they need to know that if they do not extend and take care of people, they're going to lose their jobs. Frankly, I hope they lose their jobs anyway, because they've messed up this pandemic, but they should feel the heat. And so, oh my goodness, we got to $60,000. You all are incredible. Thank you so much. You are helping so many immigrant families that did not get a stimulus check, that did not get unemployment expansion, but are feeding people and have been dedicated to their communities in so many different ways. You all are incredible. Don't worry. Again, I'm sorry. I was representing the most COVID impacted district in the United States of America. Our little pocket of the Bronx and Queens was the hardest hit by coronavirus in the country at the peak in New York. We had the uprisings. I was out there getting masks and hand sanitizer to people protesting in the streets to make sure that they were being safe. We were trying to make sure that we were legislating, that we were conducting oversight. So I got a little bit busy. Oh, and by the way, I had a primary election on top of that. So I got a little busy. I fell off the IG Live train, but I'm hoping to get back on. Hopefully next time I'll be cooking, because I know you all really like when I cook while I'm doing these things. So I'm going to try to get my recipe for next time. But thank you all so much. Thank you for raising all of this money for immigrant families. You all are absolutely incredible. And I think just tonight, just hopping on live, having a conversation, raising tens of thousands of dollars for families in need, you all show that we can take care of each other. And you all show that it's not a pipe dream. And each and every single day, you all prove that these things that we're constantly told and gaslit are unrealistic and unfeasible and not possible, are just wrong. You're living defiance of that, and you are living proof that we can have a society that is compassionate, that takes care of each other, and guarantees basic human, civil, and economic rights. So thank you all so much. We'll see ya.